Do you want to stay more focused on the right goals in your life, or even just figure out what the right goals are for you? Do you want clarity? Do you want better work-life balance? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to Success Through Failure.
Welcome to the Success Through Failure podcast, the show that reveals failure as your path to success. You'll listen to intriguing interviews with some of the most successful people on the planet and learn how their failures became a launchpad for success and how yours can too. Here's your host, former Division I All-American wrestler, former Division I head coach, speaker, and personal coach, Jim Harshaw.
Welcome to another episode of Success Through Failure. Today I bring you Giannandrea. When I was a Division I All-American athlete, I was hyper-focused and I was able to take consistent action that allowed me to be one of the best in the country at what I did. Well, for years after I was done competing, I just struggled to stay focused on my goals day in and day out. I was easily distracted, so I wasn't able to stay consistent, the kind of consistency that you need to have to achieve goals that are meaningful to you. It was discouraging for me. I felt like I was just slipping kind of into mediocrity. Then, after interviewing some of the highest performers in the world, Olympians, CEOs, billionaires, best-selling authors, I discovered how they do it. I discovered 18 powerful and sometimes weird tactics that they use to stay focused at work, focused on the right things while also living a balanced life. And if you start using probably just 3 of these today, you're going to get more done in the next 8 hours. I promise. This is not tomorrow, not next week. These will work today. I guarantee it. It's like magic, but they're real world solutions to it people like you and me want. The ability to stay focused, avoid distraction, and be consistent. I use at least 4 of them every day and have used all of them at some point. And now I'm able to stay focused while I'm at work and get probably 50 to 100% more done each day. I'm more present when I'm home with my wife and 4 kids. And the result is I have a stronger relationship with my family. And I'm still able to achieve incredible goals like being selected to give a TEDx talk at one of the biggest TED events in the world, like launching a podcast and talking to A-list guests and running a half marathon, all of this while having a full-time job that includes frequent travel, working nights and weekends, and all that good stuff. So you're going to find solutions on this list that are going to surprise you. Grab your copy of the 18 Tactics to Staying Focused at Work. Just go to jimharshawjr.com/focus. That's jimharshawjr.com/focus. His journey began in 2012 when a friend of his suffered a brain aneurysm in John's home. At 475 pounds, John couldn't get into the small bathroom to help him. He had finally hit the breaking point with his obesity. So the next day, he put on his shoes and he went for a walk down the block. But he could barely make it 3 houses before he was out of breath and turning around. And on that day, he made himself a promise to never stop moving and to learn to live a healthier life. And today he's doing just that, and he's 225 pounds lighter. He's living proof that obesity can be beat, and it's never too late to change your habits. John has built an inspiring brand and is motivating others to make the kind of change in their lives that he's been able to make in his. And as usual, for the listener, if you don't have time to listen to the entire episode, or if you hear something you like, grab your copy of the action plan. All the tips, tactics, great quotes from this episode are going to be in PDF form for you, for yourself, and to share with somebody else. Just go to jimharshawjr.com/action. That's jimharshawjr.com/action. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate it.
Well, I was scrolling through Twitter a while back and, somebody retweeted or posted some kind of article about you from Men's Health. Mm-hmm. And so I clicked over and I read it and I'm like, man, this guy is, first of all, he's real. You're very genuine. You're very authentic in your brand. And you've got a great story. And, I have a lot of people on my podcast who, they're on other podcasts and they kind of have, just this sort of brand, or they're a coach and stuff. But like, you have a brand and you're a coach in a different way. And I was like, man, I got to have this guy on. So I reached out to you. So John, tell us first a little bit about your background. Where are you from and how did you get from there to where you're at now?
That's a great question. I originally came from Long Beach, California. I was the typical fat kid that usually got picked last. I was an athletic kid, actually, which was funny because I would get picked last, but I was kind of like the secret, weapon that came in. And I was always just kind of man. Well, when I was first a kid, I was like the king of kickball on the playing field, and then after that, I got into baseball, and I was a hell of a catcher. And then I got into high school, and the coach ever asked me, he said, "Do you know how to block?" And he said, "You'll probably never be able to touch the football." He said, "But there's a thing out there called a middle linebacker, and your job is to run him over." So I was this little bowling ball of a fullback that never really got to touch the football, but I got to run over people. And, I grew up out there in Southern California before moving out back to Fresno, California. I get asked all the time, why the hell did you move to Fresno, California? But it's good here for me, and it's been great. But, growing up, being heavy was something that, you just kind of got used to. I got into college, realized that college for me at the time wasn't what I needed to do. I wanted to work. I had kind of a different upbringing and background that I don't wish upon a lot of kids. And I decided that it was time to just work and figure out my way. And so
can you touch just briefly on that background you mentioned about growing
absolutely. up? My father left when I was 8 years old on the day of my birthday. My mom was a drug addict through most of my young adulthood. At 13, she had passed.
Wow.
I grew up on the streets at 14 years old. I shared blankets with bums. I've slept in cars with people. I got a job at a bar, working bar back when I was 16 years old. I had 2 jobs. I worked at Universal Studios after that. So I didn't really have that typical, childhood. I had to work. I had to figure life out. Grandparents were dead by the time I was 17. I really didn't have a relationship with them. And so I just worked, and I buried most of my emotions with food. And it wasn't even, I look back now and I'm asked this all the time, did you know what you were doing? And no, a lot of people don't know, there's some people that, have stress and they go run outside, or they hit a bag or they, go to the gym or something. Then there's a huge population that eat. And I never blame my past for any of my, failures during my adulthood or anything like that. I never looked back and said, well, I saw my dad beat my mom, so maybe I should start beating women. I never, I've never put my hand on a woman like that. I saw him use drugs and use it as an excuse that, society sucks, so I'm going to numb myself. Well, I never went on drugs. So it was never really that. It was just simply I didn't have a lot going for myself. And, eating was kind of the thing that, food doesn't call you a loser. Food doesn't say that you're terrible. Food doesn't say you're going to amount to nothing. And I think a lot of people, and the biggest misconception about obesity is people don't understand what we're actually doing, and we're actually going through it. And, food doesn't care if you get an A or an F, and food doesn't care if you're the hot person or the ugly person. It's food. And so until an obese person learns that food is actually your enemy, it's not your best friend. It doesn't love you. It doesn't care how you're doing, and it doesn't care if you're having a good or a bad day. And I think that was the turning point in my life even before I started to actually try to start losing weight. And I yo-yoed, when I was 20, and you said it already when you introduced me, I'm as real as they come, and, I'm raw. I wanted to get laid. At the end of the day, you want to lose weight, you got to look better. Some people have all these different reasons for trying to lose weight, but at the time, I wanted a hot girl, and so you try all these diets, you yo-yo diets, you could read, you figure 20 years ago, I'm 40 now, 20 years ago, Google was, it was dogpiling Yahoo, it wasn't, the internet wasn't this big old thing, and so you would talk to coaches and things. But at the time, if you didn't have someone that knew where you came from, if you didn't have somebody that understood, at the time, a coach, just at Fresno State, I'll never forget, his name was Ken. He's a great, great guy. And I remember him telling me, well, just go for a run. Just start running. You're telling a 350-pound kid to go start running. It was that lasts once. Your knees start hurting, you're out of breath. And, so it was really hard to, 20 years ago. And so I yo-yoed basically for 15 years after my 20. And, it wasn't until 35 that I really, started thinking about losing weight. But over time, you start to realize that it had nothing to do with my past, no matter how terrible my past was. I had a father that used to tie me to a tree and beat me until I'd stop crying to try to make his son tough. So you go through all those things and you try to use those excuses, but those excuses don't pay your bills or your car payment or anything else like that. And there's a lot of people that are afraid to admit it or even talk about it. They hide. They give up in life because they use their weight. And society itself is, not very nice. And we play on that. We play the victim very well as far as society's, not such a nice place. But being obese and people not understanding, and I've had this conversation too, during this whole time, it's not society's job to understand or care about you. It's not their problem. And, we're all looking for that pat on the back or good job, and everybody needs some affirmation. But unfortunately with obesity, it becomes a choice, and sadly with the people that I train and, my lifestyle now, you meet other people, and that's kind of what separates me from a lot of things. Is my street cred is that I've lost over 225 pounds. I've been able to keep it off. And when you start sharing that story and my background and my past history, people start to kind of relate a lot more. It gets out there a little better. The story gets out there a little better. You saw my Men's Health article, and that was because of, that was a news station. I turned down Channel 30 Action News 3 times. I didn't want to be on the news. You lose 225 pounds and you have these things. I still have social anxiety. The last thing that I want to do is see my story at the time on the news, and Men's Health picked that up. They took my article. I actually talked to one of the reporters. Here's a guy that's 485 pounds that loses over 225 pounds, and Men's Health is writing something about me. For 36 years of my life, I would stand in that magazine article, and sometimes I would take a Men's Health and put it in, say, a car magazine or a gun magazine inside, so people didn't see an obese guy, looking at Men's Health. And now here I am on Men's Health. It's been a trippy ride, and people don't kind of understand that type of thing,
And you mentioned that you still have social anxiety. You don't live in some fairy tale land now that you've lost the weight. It's not like, certainly it's probably in a lot of ways a dream come true and one that you've earned, but there are still challenges, right? There's still, you've got to get up every day and you've got to go through the grind and you've got to work out and you've got to eat the right foods, right?
It's harder now. I tell people, and I say this every day, it's easier to lose weight than it is to keep it off. The battle is losing the weight, right? Once you win the battle, the war is trying to keep that weight off for the rest of your life. You see a lot of people, I won't name them, the TV show, but you see this TV show that you see, and these guys, they lose a bunch of weight and they celebrate, and then a year later they've gained it back plus more. No one gives you the tools along the way. No one says, hey, you've lost 100, you've lost 200 pounds. You have to adapt, and you have to truly understand. What people don't get is the emotional and the mental side. I still see myself 485 pounds. There's a picture in my studio on my wall.
Do you still see that? Do you still feel
yes, sir,
that now?
I do.
Yeah.
I sure do. I actually, prime example, I just I had a wedding to go to, and my girl and I had to go to a wedding, and I had to go buy a suit. And my first thought was go to the big and tall store. Go into the big and tall store because they'll have my size. And it's kind of weird because that's still my safe place. Even though I'm a 38 waist now, I was a 54 waist. But now that I'm a 38 waist, I could go to a Men's Warehouse, or I can get t-shirts at Target if I need to. But I went to the Big and Tall store because in my head, well, now here's the funny part. They couldn't fit me. They didn't have things my size. They had jackets that were big, and they would have to spend more time tailoring. I have big shoulders and I have big arms, but my stomach isn't as big now. So now you have to get the athletic cut. So now here I am in my safe place, in my home of my clothing store, that I was able to get 6s and 5s and 4s and 3XL shirts all along my journey in most of my life. And now they're telling me I don't belong. So now I'm having to go to Men's Warehouse. So now you go to Men's Warehouse, and now you're around guys with a 32 waist, and that look that look comes along as like, does this guy think something's going to fit us? So now you kind of float again, right? So you don't really fit in when you're obese. I'm not really skinny. I got a lot of muscle, and I've been able to achieve things, but now I'm still kind of floating in that different spot, a different spot of where do I fit in? And so that emotional part of it and that social anxiety part of it plays a huge role, because I still see myself that size, even though I'm not, even though I can fit in a small car if I have to. I just rented a car 2 weeks ago, and I was asking for the larger car, and the lady was trying to give me a discount, a big discount on a smaller car. And I'm trying to talk her into why I need a larger car. Yet at the end of the day, I got the smaller car and the bigger discount, and I fit just fine. So it's a mind trip, man. There's no question about it. And more people that you talk to about losing weight, and it's not just an obesity thing. There are men or women that have been super skinny all their life, and they can't gain weight, and they're made fun of. They always get the pizza joke, or you need 5 pizzas, or why don't you eat this instead of me eating this so you can gain some weight? And they still see themselves at a certain thing. It just so happens that I was obese, and I still see myself that size.
And I imagine that it's similar for people who are addicted to drugs, or addicted to porn, or addicted to or have other sort of issues, but those aren't visible. Those are hidden. And when you're obese, it's there for the world to see.
You're transparent, and everybody sees it.
Yeah, everybody sees it. I imagine that makes it challenging in a different way, maybe than other issues other challenges that people have.
I'll never take away from drug addiction or sexual addiction or anything like that. I will say, and you hit it on the head, that stuff can stay quiet. They can do that from the privacy of their own home, or their drug dealer, or behind their computer screen watching porn or something. With obesity, it's 2-part here. Half part is that your family or your friends or your coworkers are tired of hearing you say you're going to lose weight. They're tired of hearing you tell you that on Monday, you started a new diet. They're tired of every Monday hearing, today's the day I'm going to do this. You can't hide that. The only thing that you see is when someone actually tries to start losing weight, and you notice they lose a little weight, and you give them a compliment. I had people say, gosh, and I have this thing called the class of ass changes. When you lose weight, the class of ass changes, because as a man, that a different type of woman starts to kind of along the way, you find the different, class of ass. And I say that because it's so true. Now you get magazines, and you're on the news, and, you're starting a brand. I'm at a gas station recently, and we're talking this gorgeous woman. She says, hey, how are you today? And like a jerk, I look behind me and she's looking right at me, and she laughed. So she thought I was being funny when I was actually being serious. And I, like a jerk, I look behind me and I look around like, and so it was a trip to me, because I'm like, you're me, like you're talking to me. And so it was a very weird thing. And it's such a different physical feeling, because the world sees it. You can't hide this. You can't hide the awkwardness, or you can't hide the stupid comments that you make when someone says, man, Johnny, you're looking great, or you're doing so good, or, oh my God, you're an inspiration. I hear it every day on Instagram. There's almost 20,000 people that I affect in some way or another. And I have people that send me messages about changing their lives, or because of me, and you sit there, and I think what the best part is I stay humble through this, because I'm no different than the next person. It's just that I've done it and I talk about it. But most people don't want to talk about being the jerk at the gas station when a pretty lady says hi to them, and I probably looked like an idiot, and I think that part at least was the icebreaker for me to at least kind of like wave back. And then, thankfully I was like, hey, how are you? I didn't say something really dumb, but, it's changed, so those are all different aspects and people see that. You can't hide that.
And John, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no. And that's just the biggest thing is what you said before. There's no hiding it. No matter how many times we pull on our shirt or you buy a size shirt that's two sizes bigger, you can't hide it. Everyone sees it. In our head, we think, man, if I wear all black, I'm going to look skinny. You're 400 pounds, bro. You're not going to look skinny.
And you hear these statistics that it takes 21 days or 66 days to create a new habit. Mm-hmm. And then you hear about people like you who were able to make change happen, at least in this case, overnight. You had tried other times, but you had something happen in your life. You found, your friend had a brain aneurysm in your bathroom. How does somebody who has not quite hit rock bottom, John, somebody who's in the struggle, but they haven't hit that moment yet where it's going to change their life or maybe change somebody else's life. How do they make that change happen now? If they, if they feel like they're on the downward slide or they feel like they're struggling, but they just haven't hit that rock bottom moment yet. How do they make that change now before they do hit the rock bottom?
Jim, sadly, rock bottom is usually the place you've got to bounce off of, to do something like this. I meet people every day. I have people that come into my studio to train, that I train, and I've had failures along the way. I've had, as clients, as a trainer, I always say this, as a coach, you're only good for 1 hour a day in this person's life. The other 23 hours of that day, you're not there. And that's the hard part. I tell people, and I have these little tricks, and they've seemed to work. I have people that haven't completely hit rock bottom. I have people that say, I need to lose weight. I'm unhealthy. So I always tell people, I want you to go get your favorite food, your hamburger, your pizza, whatever. And then I want you to go home. I want you to take all your clothes off, and I want you to stand butt naked in front of the mirror, and I want you to eat that food. And I want you to tell me if you love what you see. Huh. And you'd be surprised how well this has worked. I share my story of not wanting people to hit rock bottom. I share my story of really explaining to people, you don't hit rock bottom, don't have a heart attack, don't get diabetes. Sadly, we as humans, and nowadays more than anything, we have to hit rock bottom because we want people to do things for us. We have we have cabinets full of medication. You don't walk into a doctor, and I'll try not to rant on this too hard, but you don't walk into your doctor and say, doctor, I'm fat. And your doctor says, well, show me your diet. No, what a doctor does is say, well, let me give you this pill and run these tests and give you some more pills while you try to figure out what your diet is. It drives me crazy. I get so frustrated because I have to share with the people in my life, everybody knows my story that comes through the door, but you try to save it. What about a 12-year-old fat kid? What do you tell a 12-year-old fat kid that has no clue what the rest of his life or her life being fat's going to be? It starts at the parent level. I always joke and say fat dogs usually have fat owners. So go take your fat dog for a walk. I say this all the time, and people laugh and people say, man, that actually is really true. I said it to myself. I'm looking around and I got a French bulldog that, was probably 10 pounds overweight because, well, I didn't take her for a walk. You have children in this country that their only role model is their parent. I asked the parents, are you happy not going down a slide with your child or getting on a swing? Why do you have to hit rock bottom? You know how many fat people, Jim, sit on a bench and tell their friends at Disneyland, you guys go ahead. I love watching you. Let me tell you what, there's not a person on earth that enjoys somebody else doing something fun. And anybody that tells you, I love watching people have fun, they're so full of crap. And that's the thing. People don't see that. And so you have to really lead by example, but you have to try to give them, you have to try to paint a picture that's worse than better. You know, it's great. Yeah, I can wear a 38 waist. I can go shop at pretty much any store I want. That's all great and dandy, but are you happy being the fattest parent at your kid's school? Are you comfortable, you know, when it's water park day for your children and you're wearing a long dress with a hat under an umbrella and you have the excuse? You know, fat people have I call it the DL, right? You're on the disabled list, you know, you play sports and, you know, you go on the list or whatever, you're on the 15 DL or whatever you are. You know, fat people have these awesome excuses, you know, bunions and knee problems and back problems, because I had all those excuses. And you have to try to give those examples, and you got to really try to scare the hell out of people so that you don't have to hit rock bottom for you to realize you're about to die. And it's a daily battle, man. You might get one or two, sadly, you might get one or two people that you can motivate, and it's the other 10 people that you have to hear through Instagram or an email or whatever that, you know, my son, my wife, my husband, you know, had a heart attack, or they now have diabetes. And it saddens me, man. It's a tough thing to go through when you hear these things.
And you mentioned failure. You mentioned that you failed. Can you tell me about a time that you failed, a time where maybe you were on this path and you failed, and as a result, you just felt that hopelessness or that overwhelming self-doubt that comes with failure, but you were still able to overcome that?
You know, that's actually, when I was reading some of your bio and stuff, it's why I was excited about doing this. You know, failure breeds champions if you choose to want to be a champion. And I lost my first 50 pounds, and I thought I was on top of the world. You know, I was 435. I was 285 when I started. I lose 50 pounds. And I'll never forget this. I went to this restaurant because there was always this restaurant I wanted to go to, and they had booths, but the booth tables never moved, right? And so I was convinced that I was going to fit in this booth. Now, I'll back up one thing and say this. I have a beautiful girl in my life that I've had in my life for almost 10 years. She was with me when I was 485 pounds. She's 5'9". She weighs 130 pounds. She's this beautiful blonde girl. And she saw through that. And she's one of the very few real people I've ever met along the way that actually, you know, through laughter, personality, and a big heart, someone was around. They really don't exist. So I lose 50 pounds, and I'm ready to take her on a date because we're used to sitting at a table, right? Because chairs move, and you can get, you know, you're fat and you're out of place. Well, I get to the booth, and I was convinced. I'm 50 pounds lighter. It was time. I was nowhere near going to fit in that booth. And people saw me try to squeeze in. And I remember seeing this girl laughing. And I was devastated, you know. And Jenna and we ended up leaving. And I didn't talk the whole way home. I dropped her off. And I went home, and I cried myself practically to sleep. And I was so angry because at the time, why, if I lose 50 pounds, I can't fit in this booth? I'm not entitled to anything. I'm not entitled to, just because I decided to change my health and lose 50 pounds to fit in a booth. You know, and so that was a big thing. I went into a severe hole. I remember for a whole week, I ate myself to oblivion. I wouldn't talk to my girlfriend. I had nothing to say to her. I was more embarrassed because she was there to witness it. You know, I was so excited, and then all of a sudden it didn't happen. It was complete failure. And I woke up one day and I realized, man, you're about to gain 50 pounds back plus more, because I was ready to quit. You know, and you really have to start to look at things. And all along those ways, I lost 100 pounds. I should be able to fit in a 46 jeans. Well, guess what? You go to the big store and you don't fit in a 46 jeans. So now you want to cry yourself to sleep again. And it's this thing over and over. You know, I finally was so pissed off after I lost 100 pounds. I was going to go either break that stupid table or I was going to fit in that table. Well, I fit in that table finally. And so you have to fail. You have to go through, and you've got to figure it out. But most of all, what are you made of? What's your self-worth? And that's the sad part, is I had to find out what I was made of, because every time something stupid, and you'll have viewers laugh, you'll have people hear this and say, God, the guy couldn't fit in a table, so he was pissed off. But the thing is I hadn't fit in a booth for 10 years of my life because of my size. So now you actually get to go to any restaurant knowing you're going to fit. It's a huge accomplishment for people like me.
Sure.
And, and people don't understand that. For failure was always one of those things where goals, I never set goals. I wanted a visual goal. I talk about this all the time. I put a pair of pants up on my wall. I tacked them up, and they were a 40 jean. And I told myself I wasn't going to stop until I got in those jeans. And it wasn't until after 2 years that I actually get in those jeans. And I failed and I stumbled all along. You diet and you have you're in this schedule, and you're in your groove and you're jamming, and all of a sudden your boys want to go to Vegas for the weekend. And you think because you've lost 150 pounds, you can smoke cigars and you can drink all night and you can order finger foods and you can do all these things while your skinny friends are sitting here having a great freaking time with abs. They're waking up in the morning like, look at my abs. I'm even ripped after eating like crap. And I'm sitting there like, I put on 10 pounds of freaking water. We're not fixed. We're still broken when you lose weight. And those were always big failures of mine, because I'm not like those guys. They're my boys, and we're all kind of the same. We all get dressed the same, but my body doesn't react to how their body reacts. And you have to learn to work with those failures. You have to learn how to turn those failures into motivation. And that's what I started really doing was, I still didn't get a job after losing a bunch of weight. Some pretty person got the job that I was looking for, and I blamed it on, how I looked. But I really didn't look that much different than that guy. So we try to chalk up a lot of these things as to a failure. And really what it is it's just a simple thing is, how do you get back up from getting kicked in the gut? And I knew that, as simple and stupid as it will sound to some people, I knew that I was going to go back and kick that table's ass and get into that table one day and take my girl to a nice dinner. But I had to remind myself for a year's worth of time what that night felt like. And I never wanted to feel like that again.
John, if you could talk to the listener and offer them something actionable, and maybe it's around weight loss, or maybe it's something that's relevant for things in addition to weight loss, but an action item that they can take in the next, let's say, 24 to 48 hours to start moving towards their goals.
I've already said it once, and I tell everybody, and I'll say it over and over. What are you made of? Ask yourself in the mirror one day and ask yourself, what are you actually made of? What have you accomplished? There's always these things it's Groundhog Day for so many of us, right? We get up, we go to the bathroom, we get in the shower, we shave, we put on our clothes, we go to work, or whatever the hell we do. Or, you're a mom, and your job as a housewife is to take care of everything in the household that you guys don't get enough credit for. And, you're raising your children, and you're taking care of your husband, and you're doing all these things. What are you made of? And I ask this all the time. What are you physically made of? People always say, oh, put my back against the wall and I'll come out, cleaner. Whatever that saying is about take me and I'll bring all the wolves back, whatever the hell they say. It's great, fun, and cute to always have these cute metaphors, but what are you actually made of? What have you said you were going to do that you haven't done? For me, it was going to go run a mile. You could do that in 24 hours. I don't care if it's a physical thing or if it's an emotional thing. What if it's telling somebody, a friend, how you truly feel? If that is the one thing, that one anxiety feeling that you have, that maybe tell a friend that they hurt your feelings, or they're doing something wrong, or they're doing something that affects your friendship. It could be anything. We are so worried about what people think. We are so worried about hurting somebody's feelings that we allow ourselves to be 10th on the totem pole. We put so many people in front of us. So what are you actually made of? And I always ask this all the time. My clients know this. It's written on the wall in my place too. What are you made of? In the next 24 hours, what is something that's not, the grandiose? We all want more in the bank account, so we all want to win the lottery in 24 hours. But what is one goal? What is one thing? What is one person that you've wanted to say something. Maybe it's a girl you want to ask out or a guy you want to ask out, but it's anything. And I always talk about a visual goal, and what you're asking me, a 24 or 48 hour. What is something that you've wanted to accomplish? But you have to ask yourself first and forehand, what are you made of? Look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, why are you here? I read the purpose-driven life, and I didn't get anything out of it because I wasn't prepared and I wasn't in that right place to understand. I'm shaving one day and I'm standing in the mirror and I'm complaining about having to go to work and I'm complaining about having to go exercise. I have to go get on a rower for 25 minutes and I'm looking for excuses to get out of it. And that's really when I came up with, what are you made of? What are you made of that you can't do it? Whether you're a man or a woman, what kind of guts do you have to actually do something that you've always wanted to do? Or you've always wanted to say, or you have an issue to talk to somebody? Why can't you actually do it? What is holding you back? And that's the biggest thing. I think that's to your answer, or to your question, my answer is what is preventing you from doing something you've always wanted to do? It doesn't have to be a lifelong goal. It could be a 24 or 48 hour goal. What is there something that you've wanted to do that you have just come up with every damn excuse as to why you can't do it? Mine was simply walking around the block at a regular time. I used to walk at 4 o'clock in the morning because I didn't want people to see the fat guy struggling. So for me, it was, you know what? Why can't I go walk at 7:30? Put your blinders on, don't care what people think, and go walk. I would lose sleep because I had to get up so early because I was so worried about what people thought. Yet I spent a whole lifetime getting fat jokes and hearing it that I couldn't have someone snicker that I would never even know was snickering driving by in their car as the fat guy walked up the neighborhood. And that's when I found out, what are you made of? Can you get outside? Can you go do something that you've always wanted to do, but you were too damn scared to try it?
Love it. Because we all have that thing. We all have that thing that we fear, that thing that we're scared of, that thing that we want to do. John, you're an inspiring guy to talk to. I hope this message just keeps rippling out from this podcast and other shows that you're on and everything else that you do in your life, man. It's a message that needs to be heard. You're an inspiring guy, and I appreciate you making time to come on the show. Take a minute and promote yourself. Where can we find you, follow you? I know you have a supplement line coming out, et cetera. Talk about yourself a little bit and where we can find you.
Well, thank you. First of all, I'm humbled, Jim. I've seen the people you've interviewed in the past. I mean, it's an honor, and it's also a trip, man. Here I am. I'm doing podcasts talking about, weight loss and things like that. And I get to say I did a podcast that other people did, and it's really exciting. For me, I worked on 2 years of my supplements. I've really worked on trying to find my way. I created a green supplement that, I was really never a huge meal prepper. I lost weight, but I would cook 3 days. You saw all these people try to cook 7 days out. I hate 7-day-old food. I cook 3-day food. My supplements you can find at ogrefitness.com, O-G-R-E fitness.com. I talk about where Ogre came from, quickly so everybody understands. O-G-R-E, people have all seen the movie, the green Shrek movie, but when you're obese, people make you feel like an ogre. And you're on a treadmill, there's nobody next to you, and someone in a gym will come and they'll look, and there'll be one treadmill next to you, and that person won't get on there. And I used to always joke, what am I, an ogre? They worried about me taking back their swamp and eating them. And so I started this thing, and ogre really stands for hope. And that's really what I created this whole thing for. And it became a nickname a long time ago, and it just kind of kicked in. The meal replacement is something that's not on the market. I'm proud to say that there's 10 grams of fiber in my meal replacement. Closest competitor is probably about 6. I use an egg white crystal. There's no whey, there's no milk, there's no garbage that hurts my stomach or anybody else's. I wanted to do something that I could show people that food is medicine and supplements are simply a supplement. It's that snack that you can make at nighttime or in the daytime or when you're at work instead of getting something fast, or you want chocolate at nighttime because you're bored or you're pissed off at your spouse. And that's why I got into this business. I got into the supplement business because I wanted people to have a healthier alternative, but something that tasted great. So you can find everything at ogrefitness.com, my Instagram, where everything happens. I'm learning. I'm getting messed with because I don't really do a lot of Facebook, but I'm learning. Instagram is Biggie O'Donnell, BIGGIE-ODONNELL. O'Donnell's my middle name. I created Instagram because it was a lot easier than Facebook. You post a picture, you say something, and you can go from there. I'm raw. I'm as real as they come. I do use some curse words here and there, but I talk about what it's like to be big. I talk about what it's like to lose weight and go through the failures of trying to succeed. And I talk about what it is to keep it off and how much harder you have to work. But at the end of the day, man, it's the single greatest thing that I'll have ever done is to be able to inspire other people. When someone says, because of you, I lost 100 pounds because you helped me get motivated, man, it's the most emotional, humbling feeling ever. And so that's really what Ogre Fitness is all about. Ogre Fitness is simply a place that's safe, non-judgmental, that I teach you how to kick some ass.
John, thanks for making time. You're an inspiring story. You're doing so much good in the world. Keep doing good. Keep it up and keep inspiring people and changing lives. And for the listener, until next time, take the time to get clear on your goals and embrace failure as a stepping stone on your path to success.